Welcome to Flash News Now. Here are today's top 12 stories. Oil prices slide after Pakistan announces deal between US and Iran. Under the agreement, the key Strait of Hormuz waterway will be reopened, US President Donald Trump said. Middle East Live, Trump to meet with G7 leaders following announcement of memorandum with Iran. Ahead of the signing of a US-Iranian Memorandum of Understanding scheduled for Friday in Geneva, G7 leaders will meet in Evian on Monday to discuss the implications of this agreement, support for Lebanon, the long-term reopening of the Strait of Hormuz, and, of course, the conclusion of an agreement on Iran's nuclear and ballistic missile programs, according to French President Emmanuel Macron. Follow our live blog for the latest updates. Uruguay squad lands in US after flight delay ahead of World Cup opener. Uruguay arrived in the US less than 24 hours before the kickoff time for their game against Saudi Arabia. Trump heralds Iran deal but questions, and risks, remain. The timing of the agreement, coinciding with the president's birthday and a bruising midterm election cycle, turns a diplomatic victory into a political litmus test, forcing lawmakers and voters to judge whether the United States can extract credible concessions from Tehran without compromising regional stability. The deal's durability hinges on three interlocking variables: the specificity of Iran's nuclear enrichment caps, the robustness of verification mechanisms overseen by the International Atomic Energy Agency, and the willingness of hardline factions in both Washington and Tehran to enforce punitive measures if breaches occur. Lebanese remain skeptical despite US-Iran ceasefire announcement. The timing of the U.S.-Iran ceasefire pledge is critical because it arrives amid a volatile convergence of regional flashpoints: Hezbollah's cross-border skirmishes with Israel, Iran's covert supply chains to Lebanese militias, and Washington's own domestic pressure to avoid a broader Middle East escalation that could destabilize energy markets already strained by the war in Ukraine. Lebanese skepticism, rooted in a history of unfulfilled diplomatic overtures and Tehran's opaque patronage of Hezbollah, means the announcement will not automatically translate into de-escalation on the ground. Instead, it tests whether Tehran will restrain its proxies without direct leverage from Washington. Kyiv monastery damaged in Russian air attack as strikes intensify across Ukraine. The fire-blamed raid on Kyiv's Pechersk Lavra, an 800-year-old spiritual epicenter, underscores a strategic shift in Russia's campaign. It is now willing to strike high-profile cultural targets to erode Ukrainian morale and international goodwill. By damaging a UNESCO-listed site and disrupting power for millions, Moscow signals that the capital's symbolic heart is as vulnerable as its suburbs, amplifying pressure on Kyiv's leadership to negotiate or, conversely, to harden its resolve. For the West, the attack tests the limits of its deterrence posture. How much can it compel Russia to relent without escalating to a broader conflict? Ivory Coast beats Ecuador 1-0 at FIFA World Cup with Amad Diallo goal. The 1-0 win in Cairo is a textbook demonstration of how the Ivory Coast's disciplined, counter-attack style can outmaneuver a technically superior side, and it underscores a broader narrative in the World Cup: the ascendancy of African teams that blend tactical rigor with individual flair. Diallo's 90th-minute strike not only secured Ivory Coast's qualification for the knockout stages but also highlighted the importance of squad depth and mental resilience, qualities that have become increasingly decisive in tightly contested matches where a single moment can define a team's trajectory. Ecuadorian World Cup fans take over Philly's rocky steps. The Ecuadorian supporters surge onto the Philadelphia Museum of Art's iconic steps signals how diaspora communities are reshaping the geography of global sport, turning ordinary tourist sites into flash mob stadiums that amplify a nation's soft power far beyond its borders. In the context of a World Cup that has already been framed as a contest of emerging football economies, the spectacle underscores Ecuador's ambition to translate its on-field momentum into a broader cultural export, leveraging the United States' sizable Ecuadorian population to secure commercial partnerships, media attention, and a narrative of national pride that can outlast the tournament. Trump hosts UFC cage fight on the White House lawn. Trump's decision to stage a UFC bout on the White House lawn is a calculated spectacle that leverages the former president's brand of theatrics to diffuse criticism of his waning political capital. By aligning the event with his 80th birthday, he reframes himself as a larger-than-life figure rather than an aging politician, projecting vitality and defiance while sidestepping the scrutiny that accompanies traditional campaign events. The move also signals a broader trend in American political communication, the blurring of partisan politics with entertainment, where spectacle becomes a tool for mobilizing a base and distracting from policy deficits. US-Iran to sign a peace deal on Friday, what we know so far. The prospect of a Friday peace deal between the United States and Iran is a pivot point for the region's strategic calculus. It signals a rare convergence of interests. Washington's hardline hawks, who have been feigning a maximum pressure campaign, now face the political reality that a renewed nuclear pact could stabilize Tehran's internal politics and restore a predictable proxy network. For Iran, the deal offers a diplomatic exit from the crippling sanctions that have strangled its economy while preserving a veneer of sovereignty against the U.S. A key question is the scope of the agreement, whether it will include the contentious nuclear fuel enrichment limits, ballistic missile programs, or the agreement's enforcement mechanisms. US-Iran deal eases uncertainty over the war, but there is much still to play out. Pakistan says the deal includes Lebanon, but recent ceasefires there have failed to take hold. US and Iran agree to memorandum of understanding and immediate end to military operations. The agreement includes plans to reopen the Strait of Hormuz, ease sanctions, and begin further negotiations over nuclear issues. That was your Flash News Now bulletin. Subscribe for more.